It sounds like so simple, but even 3 to 4 extra steps when it really could just be handled in one in a system, like makes all the difference because it really is time consuming.
Hi, and welcome to The Selling Edge, where we explore the tools, strategies, and stories that help sellers win faster and smarter. I'm Dan Prudhomme, and today we're looking at sales productivity from the perspective of the people who live it every day, account executives. Joining me is Leah Drost, an account executive with Denver 7 in Denver, Colorado. In this conversation, Leah shares what productivity actually looks like in the field. We talk about the distractions that pull sellers away from revenue-generating work, the systems and tools that can either help or hurt productivity, and the simple framework she uses to stay focused, including time blocking and the 1-3-5 method. We also explore how AI tools are helping sellers reclaim time for the work that really matters, building relationships, developing ideas, and closing business. If you've ever wondered how top AEs manage their time while juggling prospecting, proposals, clients, and internal demands, this conversation offers a real look at productivity from the front lines. To start, tell us about your role and what a productive day feels like to you as an AE.
So as an AE, I would say a productive way to spend my time is when there's no interruptions, no distractions. I can just focus on selling and talking to my customers.
And those can be internal distractions and external distractions as well.
Right.
For sure.
Yes.
So as an AE, when do you feel most productive during the day?
I would say when I'm able to, kind of as I mentioned, have no distractions whatsoever and focus on cold calling without being pulled in different directions.
What do you find are more common distractions?
I would say any type of admin related tasks, the busy work, stuff that doesn't keep me moving forward in the process to sell and talk with my, existing clients. I'm a huge planner. For me, it's setting what I call time blocks throughout the day. So that way it's undivided attention for myself and holds me accountable. So that might be like a cold calling block or just a block to think creatively or creatively, think creatively. And then I also turn on my do not disturb status on Teams, because then that way I can give that full undivided attention without people messaging me throughout the day.
Because sometimes if you have Teams, you have Slack, you have email, you have all these different tools that are helpful. It's just making sure you're, with those time blocks, I've been a big fan of those too. You can be in that zone and not having to pivot all the time. And especially if it's not a true emergency or something that's not urgent.
Exactly. I have one other thing too that's like really helped me as well. I started doing the 1-3-5 method.
Okay.
And so number one is like priority that absolutely has to get done for that specific day, no matter what. And then 3 things that are, are somewhat urgent, have some priority, but is just something that needs to get done eventually. And then the 5 other things are things that are tasks that are still important, but they're obviously not super urgent and can be done maybe later in the next week. So I find that to be super helpful too, just to keep me on track.
Do you use that 1-3-5 method when you start the day and you end the day, or does it change depending on what's going on?
The number one priority never changes because that's like a must do.
Okay.
But the 3 and 5 are tasks that can change, especially in this industry. Like I'm getting pulled in multiple directions. There can be distractions, things that pop up that's urgent. So I'm honestly adjusting those throughout the day, but for the most part, like going into the day, it gives me like a plan to work off of. And someone told me too that something that always stuck with me, which is make your plan and work your plan. And that has really helped me stay focused for sure.
Well, that's great. I like that. I called it the big 3. It's similar, but I would always have the 3 musts that you got to tackle for the day and kind of rank them. I mean, ideally, if you can get through all of them, it's a win. But if you know like you have the big number 1, then you can kind of carry those over. It's similar, but I do like that 1-3-5 method. When do you feel the least productive?
When I'm spending most of my day, if not all, doing busy work. So, I mean, that could look like a number of things, but, constantly getting double updates from people and having to respond to those so that they're in the loop, or updating systems and tools and things like that.
How much of that has nothing to do with selling?
All of it has nothing to do with self.
All
All
of
of
the
the
above.
above. Not a single thing of that has to do with selling.
So that immediately is not on the 135 method. Take that off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like beyond the 135 method. That's like the 6 or 7 method.
That's a 247, right?
Yeah.
We'll just make that up.
Yeah,
That's great.
exactly.
That's great. So, and I think a lot of it, to your point, is when you talk about that 135 method, what's going to help you with sales, right? What's going to help you close sales,
Yeah.
and always having that framework as you sort. It sounds like that's even more important as you have all these things flying at you. Um,
And I call it revenue generating activity. That's like something I make a mental note of myself when I'm planning the 135 for the day, is like, out of all those things, they need to be revenue generating activity. And if I've completed all of those activities, then I can move on to like maybe the admin stuff if it's like absolutely necessary, like updating CRMs and whatnot. But I think having that mentality of like, okay, is this a revenue generating activity or not, kind of like qualifies what I need to focus on and what I don't.
how much time would you say you're actually selling?
I would say maybe 3/4 of the day.
Do you find when you're doing that, can you tell what takes up the rest of the time?
Yeah, I would say it's constant updating systems. For example, like our CRM system that we have, checking emails, Teams notifications on updates. So a lot of it, I think, is it's tied to going back to the admin busy work, but it's also updating maybe systems that don't always need to be constantly updated. It's just sometimes that roadblock for me.
What small tasks drain the most energy over time for you then?
A big one is kind of, I know it's important, but it can be draining, is like updating the CRM with my prospects and what's pending. Like, I do know it's important, just to keep tabs on, but it is something that I think is like really time consuming. And then managing, different campaigns throughout the day as well too, can be something that's a little bit draining as well.
What does that affect you when you go back to selling?
It can sometimes be, I think, hard for me to stay focused and sharp. I think when those tasks are super time consuming and draining, it leaves less time to think creatively and strategically about the proposals I'm putting together, or maybe how I'm talking to a client, or recap reporting, like all the things that honestly I think matter in this role, I think is where it can really bleed into and not make me as efficient, because I have no energy at the end of the day, and that's that.
And sometimes it's maximizing your day based on when your peak times are and balancing that all too in terms of
Yes.
getting with the decision makers, but also doing all the things that you talked about internally and externally when it comes to that. So when we talk about, the ground truth and being in the field, when we look at all those different activities, is there something when that starts to feel excessive when it comes to doing those updates?
I think like the constant like extra steps that are involved within like a system or a tool, like I think that's, so it seems like such a small thing at hand, right? But like when you add up like that, there's all these extra steps within all these different tools that we use, it really is like a time suck. And so I think the best thing that I've come to realize is like the tools that we use are like really helpful, but I think what makes or breaks other tools is the fact that it requires less steps. and it's still something that is like helping me move forward with like that revenue generating aspect. So it can be things like AI, right? Where like it might take 2 to 3 steps less versus like another system that we use to get like the answer that I need to, whether it's like for prospecting or for creative ideas, brainstorming, all those kinds of things. So again, it sounds like so simple, but even 3 to 4 extra steps when it really could just be handled in one in a system, like makes all the difference because it really is time consuming.
Especially when you're talking about in the day, in the zone, you have updates, you've got to get things prepared. From what you just talked about with just AI in particular, it's able to kind of assist you doing some of that prep work, doing some of that creative proposal, the design, presentations. So ultimately, you can be in front of decision makers, which gets back to your whole revenue generated activity. So that's really important
Yes.
for sure. Um,
Yes.
what would you say? Which systems feel more for reporting than helping you sell?
It would definitely be this going back into the CRM system. And then just because, that's obviously a huge report that we have to constantly update, but it is something that is a time suck, especially because we're having to go in there every single day and constantly update, where we are in the process of like the sales funnel for each prospect.
How often do you work after hours just to keep systems updated, would you say?
Every day.
Or is it every day?
It's every
Every
day.
day.
Yeah.
No, I understand, especially when you're juggling all the different things that you're doing, and hopefully some of the tools that are available can help you have a little not so late time every day, right? What does that do to your motivation?
I mean, it definitely slows me down, and definitely decreases my motivation, my
Like
energy
feels
levels.
heavier?
Yeah. I
If it,
mean,
like the weight?
yeah,
Yeah.
the weight is heavier, more fatigue. And I think especially in this job, it's you want to be on your toes, you want to think like clearly and strategically. And when you don't have that, I mean, that's like taking a huge part out of your productivity with this job. So,
It's a lot of self motivation, so you've got to be fired up, ready to
yeah.
go.
You really do. Like self-motivation is everything in this job, and if you don't have it, like you're not going to make it.
No, it's the long term resilience, right?
Right.
So when we talk about tools that help versus tools that hurt, which tools actually help you sell better, would you say?
So I think going back to AI is the biggest thing. Our company uses Scripps Engine Room, which has different like AI systems, all the way from prospecting to creative brainstorming to, analyzing questions that we may have. And then have to give a shout out to Top Line because you all have helped me, so much with being able to turn around proposals quickly and the research that I need to be able to position what I'm selling to clients. And then another system that is AI focused on creating different video commercials for us. So I think between the three of those is like really cut my time in half. And there's probably a lot more that are there for us. I just don't have at the top of my head, but have really helped with like I said, kind of cutting that time in half and making me really efficient.
And just like you talked about before, when it comes to productivity, just working smart and working efficiently, to your point. What would you say, when you talk about those three things, what makes those tools different, would you say?
I would say the number one thing has been less steps. That goes back to like tools and systems that we use, where it just takes less steps to get to the information that we need to get. And also, all those systems are linked to revenue generating activity. Like when I'm in those systems, there's I'm getting information that's going to help me move forward with the sales process, not something that's going to like put me back.
And that's important, especially when we talk about day by day and really maximizing time. What would you say is the first sign a new tool will hurt productivity from your experience?
Yeah, so it could be things like going back to the extra steps, having to like open up three different tabs or, five different clicks, right, to like get to the place that you're trying to get to. And again, like when you zero in on it, like it's not, you think that it's just, some clicks and some steps, but really when you're doing that across maybe 10 different applications, it can amount to like an hour, 2 hours of your time as well. And then also just like redundance too of emails or different things that, yeah, you're clicking on.
So when we change and talk about context switching and mental load, how does switching between tasks affect your focus?
I think at first, it was really hard. It's something that I've like really tried to work on and have gotten better at. But I think at the end of the day, like it can be really hard because again, in this job, like you're pulled in so many directions. I call it going into different worlds. And so sometimes it's just really hard to stay focused because you're being pulled into all these different worlds.
What would you say happens to deal quality because of that?
It definitely diminishes because, it goes back to being fatigued and drained throughout the day. And so I'm just not able to, be as witty, as have as much clarity and stay on top of the campaigns and the clients of who I'm talking to and also generating new business.
Because being present is so important. So you being full throttle is just from my own personal experience, from what you're sharing, it does make a big deal. Because again, you're making everything happen. You're self-motivated and you got to be 100% present in the zone.
Yes. It's like filling my bucket is what I call it, or like filling the glass. And sometimes I just have to walk away because I know like it's not, my day isn't going to be productive anymore at that point.
Especially if you're refreshed and you can just get it done quickly versus a different time of day. And it might take longer because you're just not fully with fatigue or whatever's going on, fully you. So I totally understand that. How important is uninterrupted selling time?
So important. I cannot stress that enough. I think having that uninterrupted time is really what breaks or makes AEs in this business. And I think having that focus and motivation is really key because if you don't have that, like you're going to be 10 steps behind or again pulled in other directions and then at the end of the day look back and realize they all you did was busy work and not a single ounce of it was done with anything that was keeping you forward in the sales process.
How often do you get that time?
I am better at it now, but
Yeah.
back when I started, very little. And I honestly think a lot of it had to do with just not having these systems, like these applications that save us time.
And your time blocks you mentioned probably are helping.
And that too, like I think it was a combo of both, like the applications and systems that cut our time in half, and then also like me having to figure out, like as a seller, like what can I do? What's like in my control that can really help with efficiency. And yeah, that goes back to the 1-3-5 method and then the time blocks. So,
And that's the way you've got to do it. And you also, with time blocks, you have the discretion, to your point. You can change it or add to it or adjust it based on what works for you when it comes to your approach. So that's a really big deal. When we start talking about what AEs would actually change, if you could remove three things from your workflow, what would they be?
I would say extra meetings that feel unnecessary. I'm just gonna put it that way.
Well, especially from your lens, right?
Yeah.
Like what's revenue generated and right.
Yeah.
Right.
Some, we have, in my opinion, some unnecessary tools, and just the extra emails, that are tied to redundance, really.
And then it's also, you've got to have certain meetings, but maybe the length of the meetings. I
Yeah.
think sometimes things can get done in like a 20 to 30 minute window, depending on the topic, and just kind of stick with that. So I think that framing, at least from experience of having a lot of meetings and
Yes.
just looking at the objective and what you're supposed to get out of it and all of that, that's important, especially from the day in the life of an AE. So the meetings, the duplicate updates, and the necessary tools. Those are the three, right? What would you do with that time instead? Imagine that. If you could have that time, what would you do?
Oh man, I would be out on the streets more and talking to new clients, furthering those relationships with my existing clients, and yeah, continuing to cold call more for sure.
What's one process leaders think helps but actually hurts?
I would say micromanaging, and I know that's a vague word, but it really can fall into a bunch of different things, especially with like over reporting or following up on where the deal is in the pipeline. Because I think with the AE, again, being a part of that full process from start to finish, they know what's happening. And so instead, I think that could be used with like maybe your one-on-one or one meeting during the week, like updating your manager instead of constant updates like all throughout the week, which goes back to the micromanaging.
I think that's a whole topic in itself, but we
Yes.
won't go we won't go into that one anymore. But
Yeah.
I hear you. Why would you say AEs don't push back more or suggest alternatives?
I think because sometimes we feel like we're like scared or there's hesitation because you want to like impress your boss. I can speak a lot more to that, I think, when I was a newer AE, but I think sometimes we feel like it's hard to push back in some ways because we're not really sure ourselves or we're afraid to say no.
Or maybe it's just another way to frame it would just be, or just question why.
Yeah.
Like what when it comes back to like the method and the revenue generation and just why. Like I said, I've had different manager styles, and again, that could be a whole nother topic. But I think just that the opportunity to ask why or see the relevance, even if there's certain things that you have to do,
Hmm.
just the why. Why are we doing it? Sometimes that does a lot, especially if you have newer AEs, just to understand kind of the big picture.
Yes.
But I think that's a good point. As we talk about the future of AE productivity, 5 years from now, what should AEs no longer be doing?
I think none of the what we call busy admin work. I think all of the admin work that gets us pulled in different directions and distracted could honestly be replaced with more staff or systems and tools that we use.
What parts of selling should stay human?
I definitely think the client interaction piece of it, and that's building trust and that human connection. I think, especially now more than ever, people want that human connection. And so I think, I definitely think there's always going to be a place for that human element and being in front of people.
What would make a sales organization attractive to top AEs?
I think offering applications that are all time savers, but also help with the productivity and are really efficient. So whether that's, building out presentations, automatically or providing research at our fingertips, especially in this type of like industry, it's so go, go, go and so fast paced. So just being able to use systems that get you the information as quickly as possible, but also like efficient too. And all stem back to revenue generating and not busy admin work.
So, how big a role does that play? You might have just answered that one.
Huge. Yeah, in one
Sound
word, huge.
huge. It sounds
Yes.
huge or everything. It sounds like too.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
One last question. What gets you excited?
That's such a good question. I would say being creative. And it's funny that you asked that because I was thinking about, why did I start in the broadcast industry in the first place? What got me excited about coming to Denver 7? And for me, it was the first time I realized that I could be creative in a job. because I'm a very creative person. I'm actually a musician. I'm a singer in a band. I do some visual art, play other instruments. Like that's always been a huge part of me.
I knew the
And
visual arts. I didn't realize you were in a band. That's
yeah,
cool. That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
Look what
I'm
we
the
learned
singer.
today. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That I call my alter ego. But I'm a I'm a singer in a pop rock punk band. So anyways,
Do you have
I've
an alter
always
ego like Beyonce has Sasha Fierce? You have an alter
yes,
ego. Is it a
yes.
secret? It's a secret. You don't have to
Yeah,
tell
no, it
anybody.
is. I'm not even kidding. I do take my clients to my shows. I'm like, you're gonna see a
It's
whole other side of
it's
me.
your VIPs.
Yeah, yes.
That's
I'm
great.
like,
That's great.
even in my closes, I'll be like, I can offer 2 tickets to see me as part of the partnership. But anyways, what I'm getting at is I've always had that creative side to me. And so coming into a job like this, I didn't realize until I was in the thick of it, like, holy cow, I can be really creative. And that falls into like whether that's creating campaigns, recommending the right solutions. I even love putting together the presentations. Even in my initial outreach, like I'll come up with like a hook or topic of something in that category that that business can own. Like there's so many ways where I can be creative throughout the whole sales process. And quite honestly, like I don't think there's any other job where I could see myself being as creative as I can in this job. So it's just yeah, it's just something that I love to do because it really has that creative element to it.
No, I think you touched on a big part of it is as an AE, you really, and I felt it, you can be self-motivated, but you can use your creativity and be strategic in the tactics. And it maybe seem like it can be
Yes.
crazy because you have so many things, but that's what's good crazy because you do have so many things. But the bigger thing,
Yes.
the big rush for me, especially when we talk about productivity and maximizing time, you can be out there with the decision maker, like you talked about. You can help them. And then when it all clicks, it's the best. So I
It
think that's
is.
where you're managing your time and schedule is so important, and why this productivity piece. What can you do to get you there? And these tools you mentioned help you so you can be you, and really
Yes.
help them grow and succeed. And at the same time, you succeed too from it. So I agree with you totally. Totally.
Absolutely.
Leah, thanks again for joining us and sharing your perspective on what productivity really looks like for account executives.
Yes, thank you for having me.
One thing that stood out in our conversation is how much of an AE's success comes down to protecting time for revenue generating activity. When sellers are able to focus on prospecting, building relationships, and developing ideas for clients, that's when the real impact happens. Tools and systems should support that work, not slow it down. And as Leah shared, best solutions are the ones that remove steps, reduce busy work, and give sellers more time in front of decision makers. Thanks for listening to The Selling Edge. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with someone on your sales team who's always looking for smarter ways to sell. Until next time, keep selling smarter, not harder.